I really don't know how to start off this video. I am hoping and praying that I have the words to reflect how powerful and impactful this series is, and shout out to everybody who voted for it in my shoujo event that you wanted me to read this. Hello friends, happy Friday. So very excited that you're here, and I do want to start this video off with an apology. If you usually watch my top 5 Wednesday videos, you know there was no video this week, and I do apologize because I was in the binge reading cave of reading today's series that I'm featuring and reviewing. I started it, I think, over the weekend, and then before I knew it, it was Wednesday morning, and I'm like, I have no video, I have nothing planned, and so I do sincerely apologize about that. This series wrecked me, but in the best kind of ways. And if you're curious what series that is, it is QQ Sweeper and Queen's Quality. I thought it was about to fall. I was really scared. I was really nervous there for a second, but yes, QQ Sweeper and Queen's Quality. You guys voted for this series in my shoujo event. If you're like, what shoujo event are you even talking about, Laura? Definitely be sure to go check out the video here talking about the winners and what series I read. I don't even know where to start, but I guess the one important thing to start is technically Queen's Quality is the one that won during the event. But if you're going to read Queen's Quality, you have to read QQ Sweeper, which is the first 3 volumes technically of Queen's Quality. The manga creator explained that the magazine decided to change the title, so it went from QQ Sweeper to Queen's Quality, but it literally is, Queen's Quality is a continuation of QQ Sweeper. You can't just start Queen's Quality without reading QQ Sweeper. At least I would strongly not recommend that. Granted, the hardest part is that volume 1, this is a library copy, is currently out of stock everywhere unless you want to pay some really high outrageous prices. So thankfully my library came in clutch, and the really exciting thing was too is volume 2 of Queen's Quality has been out of stock for such a long time, and it came this week. Unfortunately, not before I read the copy I got from my library, but it came. I was so excited, and it was pretty funny because when I was opening up the package, I was like, Queen's Quality released this month? I was like, when did this happen? No. And I saw volume 2 on the side and was so incredibly stoked. So I just need one more volume to complete my personal collection of this series. I'm gonna go ahead and say what this series is about before I start rambling, and I do apologize if I ramble a lot this video. I literally have stayed up till midnight to read these volumes, and last night when I finished the latest volume, volume 17, I sobbed really, really hard during that volume, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, my eyes are probably super puffy, and hopefully I will be coherent and make sense with everything and can give this series the hype and the justice that it rightfully deserves, because I feel like it's so underrated, and it shouldn't be. It should not be. But in case if you're not familiar with QQ Sweeper and Queen's Quality, it centers around our main girl. Her name is Fumi. She has no memory when she was little. She has no family, and she winds up in this school. She sleeps in this room with her futon, and this guy here, our male lead, Kyutaro, comes in, and through a series of events, she finds out that he is a sweeper, and he cleans the negative energies and harmful spirits that are in people, I believe is what it says. From people's hearts is specifically what he says. And as they sort of grow together and she learns about the sweepers and becomes a sweeper herself, she finds out that she has 2 different queens that are living inside of her. And depending on which queen takes over, so to speak, will affect the world at large. Will the Black Queen take over Fumi and she's going to sort of wreak havoc, or will the White Queen take over and supposedly she won't wreak havoc? We don't really know what would happen if the White Queen takes over. So it is her story of being a sweeper, and a romantic one at that, because this has some really sweet romance and a very action-packed tale surrounding Fumi and her journey, I guess you would say. Hopefully I explained this series well, because it was an emotional roller coaster. So I read QQ Sweeper, and I believe volumes 1 and 2, maybe 3 of Queen's Quality last December. It was not a Christmassy kind of story, and so I decided to stop reading at that point. But the thing is when I started QQ Sweeper, I was completely blown away. I have not read a shoujo series as slow as I read this series. I really wanted to take everything in that this manga creator was showing and reflecting through Fumi's story. I am hesitant to say that this series, including Queen's Quality, was life-changing, but if I were to compare it to Haikyuu, which genuinely was life-changing, changed my whole life and everything, that QQ Sweeper and Queen's Quality would be right up under that. This may not be a favorite read for me, and I'm not knocking that. Please, no one think like, Laura, you're saying this isn't your favorite. How dare you? And does that mean you don't like it? No, this is a very dark fantasy. It goes to some very dark places. You go into the trenches with these characters, and I was at volume 14, I believe, last night, and I had finished reading, and I'm just like, I love these characters. This story is going down a dark path that I don't know if I can follow. I felt very emotionally and mentally overwhelmed because of things that were happening specifically to Kyutaro. If you know, you know. I'm not going to go into spoilers about that. And I was really, really overwhelmed. And I was like, well, I don't want to come on this video and be like, well, I only read up to volume 14 because I'm a wimp. And, you know, I should not have thought that anyway, because it really wouldn't matter. If that's all I could handle, that's all I could handle. Thing is I was okay, well, I'm going to pause my binge reading there and I'll come back and finish this series. But I could not stop thinking about these characters, and because I was really scared. That was the first time that I felt a little bit of hopelessness, and I felt like I was holding on by a single thread of my hope that these characters would come out of this situation okay and just be all right. That's all I could say without saying spoilers. And I was really, really worried. And I was okay. I kept thinking about them like, I'm going to come back. I'm just going to start it, and if it gets too heavy or too dark for me, I'm going to put it down. And that is where the emotional wreckness started to hit me, because one of the fantastic things about this series that we see right from volume 1 in QQ Sweeper that literally continues and grows more powerful throughout this series is that hope is the foundation for every single volume. We see that Fumi is holding on to hope for herself, for her life, where she's like, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I come from. I have always been called Curse Girl, and I'm just going to cling to hope. I mean, for her, it is finding her Prince Charming and having a happy ending, which is pretty funny. I love Fumi and just how her Prince Charming, her hope for finding that man fuels her to keep going, is her motivation. And maybe, like, I think she tells a friend, maybe it's not the best of things and other people will think it's shallow, but that hope is what kept her going. I was clinging to that hope for many different situations that happen and that these characters undergo in this series. But when it came to volume 15, I just was like, this is the first time that I've questioned the creator, the manga creator. Are these characters going to be okay? Is their hope going to be fulfilled? Will their hope not be in vain? And I was so nervous that it would be, but it was not. It was not. And I think that's part of why I sobbed. And I'm talking like deep, gut-wrenching, loud, ugly sobbing where you're just a hot wreck. This is the first time in a really long time that I found myself sobbing on 2 different occasions, because volume 8 absolutely wrecked me as well. But I was able to reel in that sobbing a little bit, so it wasn't as bad. But when volume 17, I mean, it was just like a crescendo to everything that was happening in that moment that I felt so seen. And part of why I feel like this series was life-changing for me, there's so many different things. I feel like I should have made like an actual list and went down bullet point and said each one. I feel like for so long, especially this year when my family was really, really sick, and I mean like continually, like you guys know, like literally every week we were almost going to the doctor for a different kind of sickness. It was not the same thing. If we weren't going to the doctor, then we probably were having stomach viruses and could not physically leave the house because of it. During that time, I just felt like I was continually hitting rock bottom, only to discover that my rock bottom had another rock bottom. So be like, oh man, I hit rock bottom. No, the floor opens up and I'm falling even darker down. But there came one specific night that I had hit my rock bottom. I felt very, very worthless, didn't see the value in myself, and that what was the point of me being here. And I just wanted the pain to stop. I wanted the worry to stop because I was so continuously worried and very stressed about my kids being sick. It was one of the hardest moments that I've had in quite a few years where I genuinely just said, I don't want to be here anymore. And I'm so thankful thankful for Jesus. I'm thankful for my faith because I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have Jesus with me in that moment and was able, I might say, to dig myself out of it, because it was not that simple. But from that point on, I realized that I had been knocking myself down and I felt like I was not worthy. And so when the ending came, because there's definitely an important focus in the series about your worth, and I will talk about Ataru because I love Ataru so much. So if you read QQ Sweeper and you haven't read further, you're like, how the heck do you like this guy? This guy is awful. And he is in the beginning. He really is awful. But as it got closer to the end and you see that these characters have value and that they encourage to one another that they do have worth, I just felt like, man, whatever the creator was trying to say through these characters just hit me like a thing of bricks. I just felt so overwhelmed, but such in a beautiful way, that the creator would take these characters and take me as a reader to go to some of the darkest places I've ever gone in a fictional story and encourage me as a person outside of this fictional story to never lose hope, to never doubt my value, that no matter how low my self-confidence may be, no matter how worthless I may feel, that I as a person am beautiful and that I have value. It was so wonderful and so powerful, and I was just so thankful to read a story where you could vividly see that, where it's tangible, feeling that hope in these characters and seeing them come to realize their own value, the way that the queen plays a role in Fumi's life and how Fumi overcomes obstacles is incredible to see. There were times that I really struggled with the reality of reality and this being fiction, because I feel that as a Christian, and I read the Bible, that it talks about that we always have to be on guard, that our minds are at battle, that there's a spiritual warfare happening around us. And to see that so powerfully I felt represented in fiction was mind-boggling to me, because I just felt when I was reading this series as well that I made a very, very dumb financial decision, and I berated myself so strongly. In that moment, I felt worthless. I was ashamed. I was disappointed. I wanted to hide. And there's a scene with Kyutaro that just really hit me, where he so often, I think I related to him and Ataru the most in this series, though probably Kyutaro even more, because they were talking about his father and they were talking about what happened to him. And they're like, Kyutaro, you have a lot of similarities with your dad, and things that happened to him, or one thing that happened to him, could actually happen to you. One of the things that they talked about is to not let the regret bugs, because they call these negative energies, they call them bugs, and how they change and they become malice in a person's mind and sort of transform them depending on how many bugs are inside of them. It hit me that those regret bugs, that it can affect me the same way. I know that we don't have bugs in that same sense, but seeing that situation and him be able to overcome that. I'm keeping that sort of vague, and I apologize because I don't want to go too in depth because of spoilers, but I feel like Kyutaro has those moments like that where he just has to learn to let go of things. He has to learn to surrender things, and it definitely makes things that happen in volume 17 extremely emotional. I love Kyutaro. He is in my best boy shoujo hall of fame that I have. He is one of the sweetest characters, male leads, that I have ever read. He is so respectful and he's such a gentleman. And I remember that there was a scene where he's gotten very injured in the mind vault, as they called it, and they're back in the real world. And Fumi's like, well, let me help you. Let me help heal you from what's happened to you. And he's like, no, I don't want you to help me. I shouldn't be the one getting help. It should be other people. And Kyutaro is one of the first people on the line, basically, who is helping clean out these bugs, helping these people recover and heal in a good, positive mental state. I felt that on such a deep level, that I am one of those people. I will gladly give my all to help encourage other people, but let somebody encourage me, and it's like, no, you shouldn't be doing that to me. I should be doing that to you, because going back to what I said before, of not feeling that I am worthy of that kind of encouragement from somebody else, that I am stuck where, and I wish I could remember it, because there's a character that talks about how you have to get out of this trap continually every single day, that there's going to be a trap to be loathing yourself and in self-pity, and you have to rise up above that and conquer that trap every single day. Otherwise, you will fall deeper or down and down. And that was another part that I really related to. There's such a beautiful and important focus and emphasis on your mental health as a person, that again, that you matter, and that can't always help people the way you may desire until your own mental health and your mind vault is clear, that you're walking that straight and narrow path, or that middle path as they call it in the series. You're not looking left or right, that you're depending on the people around you when you have these weaknesses. And Fumi learns that later on. She's like, the stuff with the queen, she's like, this is my problem. I have to do this by myself. I don't want to hurt anybody else. And that was a test, and she fails that test because she did not depend on people around her. She did not depend on her partner Kyutaro to go in and to fight these bugs. I can't remember where I've heard it from or anything, but somebody's told me that, you want to help people, you want to love on people. You have to love yourself first so that you can encourage other people, genuinely be there for them and support them. And I felt like this manga series displayed that so incredibly powerfully, because Fumi, she grows so much. And if there was any one complaint I had about binge reading this series the way that I did, is I wish I would have had more time, that I personally would have taken more time to really let this story sink into my mind and really think about, yes, this is just a fictional story, but I really feel like it is inspiring readers to make changes in their heart and in their life, and encourage you along the way. Like, there was another conversation, I don't remember who tells Fumi, but I think it was Granny that tells Fumi, but she tells Fumi, you have to go to those uncomfortable places to find healing in your life. There are multiple doors that Fumi has to go to, and each door is different, and each door is hard to get there. You can't just walk. I mean, sometimes you can walk through it, but you have to concentrate and be ready and prepared to see what is behind that door. And it just made me think of how true it is, that you have to be brave, you have to be strong, to be willing to figure out why are these things happening, why, in the sense of, why did I react to a certain situation this way, why was I angry of what they said, and digging down deep to the root of that answer is never easy. At times when I was reading the series, I was wishing that I was like, I wish I could have read this when I was in high school, because another very pivotal point was they were talking about, I think it was evil intentions and our feelings. And they're like, what's your feeling? If it's anger, if it's sadness, that is not an evil emotion. But depending on what you do with that emotion and your intentions, then it can become evil intentions. But you feeling anger, you feeling sadness is not a bad thing. It is an emotion, and it makes you normal. Dude, I didn't genuinely learn that my emotions as a person, because I think it was like, one of the characters didn't want to react to something in anger. And they're like, why? Why would you not feel angry? It's okay. It's normal for you to feel angry in this situation. And I'm like, why couldn't I have learned that sooner? That these characters are showing that to so many of us readers, just the beauty and the importance of all of these things of, just saying this mental health. And one thing that also stood out to me too is the beauty of community. I think it is incredible. I mean, I wouldn't say that this community is perfect, but it is a beautiful representation of that. When we are in a community where we find ourselves wanted, where we find ourselves cared for and loved, we thrive as an individual. We cannot go through life alone. We cannot fight or do battles alone. When we're digging deep in those trenches, you need people who know your weaknesses, who are going to be standing by your side and care for you, who can encourage you and lift you up when you feel your lowest. We see that happen time and time and time again, that these characters realize they cannot do this alone, and that they actually get stronger when they're working with their partner, when they're working together as a clan, as in a community. I was so amazed and encouraged by that. Like, that is community, and it is beautiful, and it is amazing. That's not to say when we're in community things don't happen, and there's stress and there's tension and there's arguments, because we definitely see that too. But we see forgiveness, and we see coming back and reuniting for a strong purpose, for the good of a person, for their community, for the world. Like, maybe that sounds exaggerated for the world, but the community aspect of the story is so powerful. And I know I mentioned in my Goodreads review on numerous occasions how much I love loved seeing that. And especially too, Fumi is in high school. I believe her and Kyutaro are second years. And seeing Granny and Koichi, who is Kyutaro's brother-in-law, seeing them come and guide these young characters, or these, I would say young people, I feel like I'm old when I say that, but helping these high schoolers though navigate through life was absolutely amazing. That someone so wise like Granny would come. I mean, Koichi is a little bit too, but Granny got the wisdom. She got the wisdom. But her coming along Fumi and help guiding her, like it was so beautiful to see an older person in this series helping, I guess you would say, like a younger generation and pouring into them just love and encouragement, being by their side. It was so wonderful. And seeing Fumi's journey from who she was in the beginning, where she has to work on different things, was very emotional. Like there was one volume, we find out what's behind one door and who a certain character is. And the tear works let loose. I didn't sob, but I did start crying at that moment. Was so emotional and so relatable. And I feel like this manga creator, I forget what volume it is, but she talks about, there's a character that talks about you need to be consistent and steady and strong in your convictions. And I feel like this manga creator was so steady and strong in her convictions of encouraging her readers, of encouraging and showing you need to take care of you. You are not worthless, that you have value, and that you can be a strong individual. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy or that you're not going to repeat tasks every day. Like I mentioned earlier about those traps, that you have to overcome those, but that you're not alone. Like I feel like you can just see her conviction in every single word, in all of her art, because the art is absolutely stunning and so incredible. I love when we have mini panels that zoom in on the eyes and you can just see the emotion in their eyes alone, which I know is a very prevalent thing in shoujo manga, but I just felt like with maybe the topic and the subject matter that was going on at hand, like outside of the fictional aspect or like the entertainment aspect, that you could really feel the manga creator's heart. And I'm like, her convictions deeply and strongly touched me. I love Fumi. I love Kyutaro. I love these characters. I never imagined when I started this series that it would be so incredibly deeply impactful to me. I feel like this is a series, like I said before, that I really feel like changed something in me that's not temporary, where, okay, it changed me for a week, I'm going back to who I was. Like, no, like there felt like so many truths and nuggets of wisdom that just poured into me through these characters' actions and through their words. And the biggest takeaway for sure is to never lose hope. And that is something that has been always really important to me as a Christian, because I have felt hopeless so many times in my life. And I just felt like maybe in recent years that I've forgotten to really cling to hope and see, or maybe more importantly, seeing what that looks like, because I actively through every situation saw that. Because I will warn, there are some triggering points in this series. I don't know if I mentioned them in any of my reviews, but just keep a heads up. I do feel like it is important to maybe be in a good mental health state, because this series was not necessarily a fun read. I feel like that's weird to say, because I'm like, well, I like reading for fun and enjoyment, and I did enjoy it. Like volume 9, my favorite volume in this series. I'm pretty sure it's volume 9 because Kyutaro and Fumi are a couple, or they look like a couple on the cover. Yes, I loved this volume. This was definitely my favorite volume. I'd say volume 17, even though I sobbed a whole bunch. I do feel like that would also be a favorite volume just because of how everything came to be. And these characters are so amazing. They're so amazing. I feel like this is one time, well, it's the characters that make this story, but I really feel like there was a lot of themes that deeply impacted me that I felt were, I would say, greater than the characters, but that doesn't make sense because you need the characters. But the themes from these characters' lives just wrapped around me in such a beautiful, mind-blowing way that I don't feel like this is a series that's going to be leaving my mind. It's going to be up there with Haikyuu of things that this series made me want to be a better person, in the sense that I do not want to ever let go of hope. I want to genuinely depend and trust on people that are in my community that I know care for me and that have the best interest for me, and that I can be there for them. Also, that I should always be on guard, that when I feel weak, that I need to open up to someone I trust and love and be honest with myself, because that is a really hard thing, to be honest with your feelings, especially when you're being honest, it's about your weakness, and nobody wants to feel weak. But these characters show that as hard as it is, and especially with guidance from Granny and Koichi and whatnot from their community, that it's important to be open about our feelings, to not lie to our partners or, to close friends about our struggles and what we're dealing with, because people are there that they care for us and want to be standing by our side and help us so very much. It's probably a rough transition here, but I do want to just briefly talk about Ataru. Like I said, if you've read the beginning, you're probably not going to like Ataru, and he's right here, but I loved him. I was so thankful to see more of him on page later on. I feel like his struggle was very realistic, and even if I didn't really relate to him in the beginning, that I did later on, especially when things change, and I just loved seeing him grow, especially in that last arc. It was so beautiful, and it made me realize, I think that's why I became very attached to to his character, because I needed to see him have a happy ending, so to speak. The story is definitely not over, it's still ongoing, but by this last arc, when it wrapped up, I needed to see change in him and see how he would change. I really needed to see. It was very important to me, and I didn't realize how important it was to me until that time came. I don't know where the story is going to go from here, and I feel like I should gush more about the characters, but I felt like when I was about to film this video, I really felt like something that was important to me was showing those themes and how this story just captured me and deeply encouraged me. And I feel like, just again, when all of this is over, when I'm done filming this video, that these characters are just really going to stay with me, and I'm very thankful for everybody who voted for this series, and that I made the decision and the choice last year to buy it, because I feel like even if it's hard and I don't want to be going down these dark paths with these characters, it really encourages me as a person to just never lose hope, and that I'm never alone, and that there's like some people that care for me, and I don't have to believe the voices in my head that they don't need to have power in my life at all. Like, they don't belong there. They don't need to be there. And I'm so excited to see where this series is going to go. I have trust in the manga creator that these characters are going to continue to flourish, that they will be strong. And it is amazing seeing how strength and community can transform a person for the better. Like, I definitely feel that that is through just Fumi's outfit alone, and just from the beginning, that strength is a very beautiful thing, and walking the straight path, the middle path, and clinging to truth is such a strong and beautiful thing. But I will stop there, friends. I feel like I could definitely say a lot more, but I didn't really want to cry this morning any more than I did last night and just today. But this series is wonderful. I hope that just this review will just touch one person to want to check out this series. Keep in mind that it does get pretty dark at times, but I just encourage you to know that hope is always there. Never let go of hope for these characters or for yourself. You have a value. You are important. You were chosen. You are worthy. And again, you are powerful and you are loved. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!